Hey guys, so we're going to go through middle splits today. Nick's goal at the moment for his mobility is middle splits, and that's going to help him with his kicks in Muay Thai and various other things. Also make him look like Jean-Claude Van Damme. So in this video, we're going to break a little bit down about how to train for middle splits in terms of what joints to work on and what tools we can use, what exercises we can use for specific joints to increase the range of motion. We're also going to go through what's basically required in the middle splits. Okay. So when we're starting our mobility sessions, we'll normally start with level 2 CARs. So that's what we're going to start with. We're just going to go through the knees and the hips today. But for middle splits, you do also need to have quite a lot of control through the ankle as well. But today we're just focusing on the knees and the hips. So first things first, Nick's going to get himself on his bum, facing the camera. From there, he's going to grab his right leg with his right hand. He's going to hook it in nice and tight. He's then going to grab a hold of it in a hook grip with his other hand, so it's nice and secure in there. And he's going to try and sit nice and tall in this position. Okay. He's now going to perform his knee CARs. Now, before we start, we just want to try and work on the rotation from the knee. So Nick's going to imagine he's holding a football between his ankle and his shin. From there, he's going to try and rotate his knee externally and internally. Now, his hands are blocking out his hip. That's a passive block, so it's a level 2 CAR. And he's just working on rotating that knee. So do a few reps for me, bro. Just keep going. So you can see that rotation is not coming from the ankle, it's coming from the knee, it's coming from the tibia. Okay, now externally rotate. In that external rotate position, I want you to try and curl your heel in towards your bum, so you're going to flex your knee. So keep that position, and now try and curl your heel towards your bum. That's it as much as you can, so you squish your arm. From there, he's going to try and extend the knee as much as he can, keeping a soft bend in it. He's then going to internally rotate the knee, and then bring it back down into flexion. Good, externally rotate. Extend, keeping a soft bend in the knee, internally rotate, and come back down. Do one more in that direction, externally rotate, extend, keeping the chest nice and tall, internally rotate, bring it back down. Easy as that. Now you're going to go opposite directions, this time keeping the knee in internal rotation, extend, externally rotate, bring it back down. Good, 2 more. Keep that chest nice and tall. To make it hard, you can pull the knee towards the chest even more, and you'll start to feel the hammies.
Yeah, feeling the hammies.
Bit of tension in there. Good. Last one. Keep that chest nice and tall. Good. Awesome. Now I'll do exactly the same thing on the opposite side, but I want you to face this way. Okay, so once again, Nick's going to take that hip in, he's going to block it out with the arm. Now, if he's quite flexible, what you can do is you can actually grab a hold of his bicep. So try and grab a hold of this bicep, if you can. Yeah, good. And then the opposite arm can go on top of the knee. So if he's quite flexible, and if you've got the prerequisites for this in the hip, you've got the hip flexion for it, then you can do this, and that'll put your knee into a little bit more, your hip into a little bit more flexion, and make it a little bit harder to extend the knee because you'll feel a lot more tension in the hamstrings. So let's go again. Let's start with the rotation. So imagine you've got a football and you balance it between your ankle and your shin, and then from there just try and rotate that knee externally and internally. Good. That football staying between the ankle and the shin. Good. Every rep, try and increase the range of motion. Good. Okay, from there we're going to extend in external rotation. Extend, soft bend in the knee, internally rotate the knee, and then back into flexion, curl the heel towards the bum. And again, try and increase the range of motion with every rep. Good. Keeping that chest nice and tall, spine nice and neutral, beautiful. So we're very much just starting to warm the knee up here, getting some different ranges of motion. There is quite a lot of load on the knee, especially medially when you're doing middle splits. So it's important the knee's prepared for that amount of load before we start training. Good, now opposite direction. So back into internal rotation, back down. This time we'll stay internally rotated. Feeling that?
Yeah.
Good. Just nice and tall. Last one. Easy as that. Okay, so they're your knee CARs, guys. So what we're going to start to work on to now is the level 2 hip CARs. So we're going to work with 2 examples. The first one is going to be in a supine position, which means lying on your back. The The second one is going to be in a quadruped position. Okay, and we'll be taking the hips through the ranges of motion that it goes through. So to reiterate, it's got flexion, extension, internal and external rotation, and then abduction and adduction. So we'll be going through all them ranges throughout this. Okay, so you're going to lie on your back, shuffle this way slightly. Oh, that's fine, yeah. Shuffle your head this way slightly. I'll put you on a pillow so you're comfortable. Okay, so how are we looking? Should be okay. So from here, what we're going to do is basically do like a half car. So it's going to be very similar to if you're doing a regular car, but you're not going to be going into internal rotation and extension. Okay, so you're going to start with this leg here. You're going to bring the knee across, or bring the leg across the body, then externally rotate as much as you can. Then you're going to bring it up into flexion like you're pinching a golf ball between here. And then you're going to come out to abduction, so out to the side, keeping this hip down to the floor so you're not compensating. Feel that opening up, contracting the glutes, try and increase the angle of the stretch. Good, and then come back into flexion all the way and getting that golf ball back in there, back into external rotation, and then bring the hip back across the body into adduction. Good, I want you to do 4 more there for me. If you want to put your arms either side to give you a bit more balance, you can do. So maybe take your fingers off and put them either side, push into the floor. Good. Keep this knee down, keep this hip down. Good job. Get that golf ball back in there. Externally rotate. Go on, you got more than that. There you go, now come across the body. Beautiful, nice. 3 more. So Nick's trying to radiate tension through his whole body. He's locking down through the abs, he's squeezing his bum, driving the arms down into the floor. So he's nice and solid, and all that tension he's creating is being translated into the hip. So you can push out more flexion, more abduction. Keep this hip down, no compensations. Bring it back in. Right in, that externally rotate, bring it back across the body. Beautiful. So specifically for his middle splits, that abduction is really, really important. Especially so, start to bring it out to the side now, keeping it in flexion and then drawing down. So this position here, this abduction, this is really, really important for middle splits. We need to be able to get our knee all the way to the floor in order to be able to do a middle splits. Good. And then back across the body. Beautiful. Now we'll swap sides. Good, a bit more external rotation, push it out, try and get the foot as high as you can. Good, now all the way into flexion, getting that golf ball pinched in there. Flexion first. Keeping that spine flat to the floor. Keeping this hip down, coming out to the side as much as you can. Good. And then externally rotate. And bring back across the body, bring the knee. Good, well done. Good, and then bring it all the way into flexion now, pulling it towards the chest. We just can't get any further, then bring it all into abduction. Keeping this hip down, good, 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 keep pushing it out, squeezing the glutes, drive down, drive down. So squeezing the outside of the glutes to try and engage the closing angle of the joint so you can pull into more range of motion. Good, 1 more for me.
It's a lot harder than it looks.
Again, external rotation first. Yeah, good lad. There you go, come across the body first, then you go into flexion, getting that golf ball in there. Then you try and abduct, drive down, keeping this hip to the floor. Good, good job, nice. Okay, the last level 2 car we're going to use to warm up is going to be the hip again, but this time in quadruped. So we're working very much more through extension and abduction again. Okay, so again in middle splits we need a lot of hip abduction. That's the main joint action that's going on in the middle splits. You're abducting your hips. Okay, bring them out to the side. So we like to spend quite a lot of that time there warming up and making sure we've got lots of awareness and control through that before we then go and start to load it with things like pails, rails, which we'll be going on to next. So what I want you to do is get yourself on all fours, facing this way. Okay, so this one's quite a challenging exercise. So it's somewhat of a level 2 block because our knees and our hands are into the floor. But the hard part is trying to keep the spine from compensating, okay? It's really easy in this position to let your spine compensate and extend or rotate or laterally flex. So what I want Nick to do is really, really set through the core, okay? And really brace through the core so his spine isn't gonna move at all, okay? He's trying to keep that spine nice and stiff, nice and stable, The only thing moving should be the hip. Okay, that's the only joint we're trying to work on here. So the first thing he's going to do is try and extend the hip. So locking down through the spine, he's going to try and curl the knee into the bum, and he's going to try and extend the hip as much as he can. It's not coming from the lumbar spine. All that extension is coming from the hip. So this stays nice and tight. Good. Now extend using the glutes. This stays nice and tight, not using that lower back. Good. Extend, extend, extend. From here, again, keeping that nice stiffness through the spine. He's going to come out into abduction, making sure he's not rotating through the spine. Good. Yeah, it's harder than it looks. And then once you can't get any further, you're going to come back to extension and lower back down. Good, stiffen up through here. Do not let this move. Let's go 2 more reps. Lock down, extension, abduction. Good, more. And then back to extension and back down. 1 more. Very intensive on the glutes. Extension. Making sure his spine's not moving, he's only using his hip here. Good, that's better, well done. Now I can start to feel your hip moving, not your spine. Good. Push it out, come on, push it out. Back to extension. Yes, well done. Awesome. Now we're going to turn around and switch sides.
Getting a sweat on, lad.
11 minutes. Okay, so same again. He's making sure he's locking down to the spine. He's squeezing his arms into the floor. He's squeezing the standalone, so in this case, the right hip and the right toe, squeezing it into the floor, radiating tension through this position. Everything else in his body is staying stiff. The only thing moving is his left hip, okay? Let's lock down and let's go for it. Extension first, no movement to the lumbar, just that hip extending. Come into abduction, good. Back into extension. Come on, extend. Nothing in the lumbar, and then back down. Good. Lock down, extension, good, abduction, yes, well done, no rotation in that spine, good lad, and then back into extension, back down, good lad, last one, locking down through here, come on, good, so he's squeezing the abs, he's keeping set, abduction, good, feeling them glutes working hard, back into extension, and back down. Good lad. How was that?
Testing.
Yeah, that's your warm up. That's really good. Okay, so this is very much the most important part of what we're doing, controlling our range of motion. Okay, building awareness and building control in our joints. Okay, and learning how to move one joint on its own at a time. So when Nick's going through this, he's not trying to move his spine, he's not trying to move his shoulders, he's trying to move his hip. Okay, he's trying to move his right hip. Nothing else should be moving. He's just trying to isolate that joint. And then as we improve our ability to isolate one joint on its own, standalone, when we then go into more complicated movements where we need to make adjustments, they become so much more effective. We can make much better, create much more efficient movements. Okay, so it's really important that you learn how to individually move one joint on its own through its full range of motion with control. Okay, so now we're getting to the expand phase. This is where we start to look at things like Pales rails and passive range holds and passive range liftoffs. Now Nick's goal is middle splits. Okay, so his goal with middle splits, at the moment, his hip range of motion is not fantastic, and on a capsular level, so his internal and external rotation is definitely very limited. So when we're working with the hips, as he knows, when we're working with the hips, the first thing we want to do is try and address the capsule if it needs to be addressed. Okay, and Nick wants middle splits, he hasn't got enough internal and external rotation, so we need to work on the capsule before we start to go into just working on abduction and flexion and these sort of things. Okay, the capsule needs to be addressed first. He needs better external rotation, better internal rotation. So that's what we're going to start off doing today for his middle splits training. So I want you to get yourself into the 90-90 position. So he's in a 90-90 position, so the front leg is staying in line with his front hip bone, the front knee is in line with his front hip bone, and then the ankle is laterally in line with his knee, same on his back leg, okay? The hip and the knee are in line, and then the knee and the foot are vertically in line, okay? And he's in this nice 90-90 position. Now for Nick, it's quite a challenge. So what you've seen happening here is his spine is laterally flexing a little bit. Okay, so he's not upright, his spine's laterally flexing a little bit. So what I'm going to allow him to do is take his hand out a little bit further to the side, and then I want you to create a neutral spine here. Okay, so I want you to try and stiffen up. You're going to be leaning on the side, which is fine, like Leaning Tower of Pisa. Okay, so you're not laterally flexed, you're not hunched over, you're not trying to contract here. You're trying to get nice and neutral through the spine. You're just going to be slanted on an angle. Do you feel comfortable there? Yeah. Awesome. So we're going to start off by working on his hip internal rotation, which means we're going to be working on his back leg. If I can get you to shift to your face that way, it'll probably be better.
This way.
Yeah. Perfect. And then shift forward slightly. So this leg here is what we're going to be working on, this hip here. So internal rotation, if he was to internally rotate now, what would happen is his foot would pull off the floor. Okay? Now, let's see first if you're able to do that. So hold this position. Can you now try and lift up your foot in that position? You can a little bit, that's pretty good. Okay? So what I'm going to get him to do is I'm going to try and get him to stand up a little bit taller. So I'm going to get you to shuffle his hand in a bit more, because what that's going to start to do is close the angle. As he shifts his shoulder towards this knee, it's going to start to close the angle and make it harder to lift. Now try and lift again. See, it becomes a bit harder, but you've got a bit more. Just come a little bit further. Again, keep that spine nice and neutral, stay rigid through the core. Now try again. Okay, a little bit. Let's go a bit further, tiny bit further. Yeah, good. Now, if you're there, and does that feel like it's like crazy painful, or does it feel like it's just a good stretch?
It's just a good stretch. Nice.
Okay, there's no pinching going on in here though? No? It feels like, where does it feel like a good stretch?
Just there.
Okay, so you feel like you're cramping?
No, it's good.
So this is a little bit on the closing angle. Okay, so if he's cramping in here, he's not pinching, which is good. It means none of the nerves, it's not a closing angle pain, so it means it's not necessarily a problem, but he's getting a little bit of cramp here. So really we want the stretch to be felt more on the inside of the hip, which is the opening angle of the joint, okay? So let's try and change his position around a little bit. Let's maybe try and take this arm here and place it on this side. Now what do you start to feel?
Yeah, internal.
Feels more.
Stretch on the inside.
Okay, good. So that's what we're trying to achieve. We're trying to achieve that stretch. This is the passive stretch here. This is the start of our Pales Rails procedure, which you've got access to. But it's usually about 2 minutes in a passive stretch before we start. And we want to be identifying where the opening angle is, and we want to be getting a nice stretch, finding nice lines of tension in that position, and creating that stretch through there. Okay, so I'll let him sit here for a little bit longer. Again, if you wanted to try and increase close the angle and make it harder, make it more intense, he would try and shift all his body towards this knee, towards this foot. Okay, and as we go through the Pales Rails, you might find that you can do that. So, chest nice and tall, lock in through the abs. He's now going to start the Pales contraction. So what Nick's going to be doing, he's going to be trying to push the ankle down into the floor. What that's going to be doing is trying to externally rotate his hip. So what he's doing here is contracting the opening angle. Okay, and he's building strength in the end range of the opening angle, and he's trying to contract and produce force in this position. Okay, but obviously he's not going to go anywhere. It's an isometric, so it's a progressive angular isometric load. The progressive, the opening angle, is being contracted isometrically. Okay, so this is what he's doing here. The floor's not going to go anywhere, but he's still going to try and make it go somewhere. So lock down through the core. I want you to start to push the ankle into the floor. 10% now. Pushing down. 20%. Keep the knee down. 30%. 40%. 50. Now try to contract the abs. Squeeze the fingers to the floor. Squeeze this hip down. 60%. Pushing down. 70%. All this tissue is contracting. 80%. Push, 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 push. 90. Come on, come on. Push, 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 push. And 100. Hold for 5. Hard as you can. Safely. 4. Maximal safe contraction. 3. Push down. 2. And 1. Now try and contract this side, the closing angle, and try and pull the foot up. As you try and pull the foot up, you're going to try and lean towards me. Pull the foot up. Pull the foot up. Pull the foot up. Contract all this tissue. Pull, 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 pull. Contract, 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 contract. Pull, 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 pull. And hold the position. See if you can come into a little bit more of a stretch. No, you're holding there, cramping. Okay, try and hold the cramp. Cramp is neurological confusion. If you can hold through it, it's good to hold through it. Okay, it's good to get more understanding, get more awareness in this position. At the moment, his nervous system's confused. That's why it's cramping. So he's trying to let it relax, get control over it, tell his nervous system that he's in control in this position. It's a range that he has got access to. Obviously, if it's really bad cramp, you can come out, but try and push through it if you can. Okay, nice and slowly ramp it down. That's an example of one round of Pales Rails. He spent about 15 seconds pushing down, and then he spent about 10 seconds trying to pull the foot up into more internal rotation, pulling the hip up into more internal rotations, trying to get into more range of motion. Okay, let's slowly come out of that now, and let's do the opposite side. Yeah, come out nice and slow. Trained internal rotation Pales Rails. So in most case, well, in his case, we'd probably do more than just one round. But when you're first starting out, like anything, you want to start small. Okay, so one round, to start with, will probably be enough, because you don't want to wake up the next day and be, your hip be super sore and you can't.
Not be able to walk.
Yeah, not be able to walk. But to be fair, you shouldn't be too bad. But yeah, ease into it. Okay, for Nick, we typically do about 2 or 3 rounds, but as we're just doing it for the camera, it's only going to be 1 round. Okay, so now I'm going to work onto his opposite side. Now, from the last side, as Nick was starting to contract, especially for the rails contraction, he was definitely starting to laterally flex his spine, which is a compensation. We're just trying to work the hip. Okay, we're not trying to work anything else. Everything else stays stiff and stable. We're just trying to work the hip into more internal rotation. So what we've done is we've propped him up on a pillow, given him a little bit more elevation, and that's slightly shortened or opened the angle of the internal rotation of the hip, and that's going to make it a little bit easier for him. So if that's you and you're down there and you feel like you're hunching over and you just massively compensating through the spine, prop yourself up a little bit. Okay. So again, it's the same procedure. We start by making sure we've got that nice neutral spine, and then we start to think about, are we able to get a nice stretch on the opening angle of that hip? Okay, so the inside, this region of the hip.
Definitely feel it.
Yep.
Feels good, yeah.
Sweet. Okay, does it feel like you're kind of comfortable there? Do you want to go any further into the stretch, or?
I feel pretty good.
Okay, so we'll hold it here for now. Now, again, you hold it for about 2 minutes, and we're going to go straight into stretch now. We don't want to take too much time on this, but typically when you do this on your own, you'd start the passive stretch for about 2 minutes, finding them good lines of tension, so making sure you are feeling the stretch on the inside of the hip. Okay, so again, the Pale's contraction, he's trying to push his ankle down into the floor. He's keeping his knee down, because if his knee starts to come up, suddenly again, internal rotations, the angle's being opened, and we're not actually training it in its end range. Okay, so we want to try and make sure we push our knee down, but the majority of the force is going to be trying to push the ankle down into the floor. Okay, so we're contracting isometrically. The opening angle is contracting to push the foot down into the floor. Okay, so 10% pushing the foot down, or the ankle down. 20% making sure you're nice and set through the spine, making sure you're not arching, cause nice and engaged. 30% pushing down, shouldn't be able to pull you up. Good lad. 40%, 50% pushing down, 60. Okay, now start to contract the abs, squeeze the fingers into the floor, push this hip down, radiate all your tension that you are creating into the hip, into pushing down for internal rotation. Push down, push down, push down. Shouldn't be able to pick you up. Come on, push, push, push. 70, 80, 90, and 100. Pushing down as hard as you can. Maximal safe contraction. 5. Come on, push, 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 push. 4, 3, 2, 1. Now this is starting to engage, and we're trying to engage the closing angle of the hip, and we're trying to pull into more internal rotation. Now pull, 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 pull. Engage this, try and pull that foot off the floor. If it was on a scale, you'd be trying to make the scale as light as possible. Pull, pull, yeah, good man, good man, good man, good man. If you can start to lean the shoulder towards the foot, that's ideal as well. Pull, 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 pull. Can you start to lean over any more, keeping the spine neutral? 3, come on, pull, 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 pull. 2, arm 1, hold that position. Can you take this arm to here? Good, so he's managed to open up the angle a little bit more. Still got a nice upright spine. Yep, that's good. So now that he can get his hand here, that's told me that his shoulder's a little bit close towards his foot, and he's actually closed the angle a little bit more. So he's pushed deeper into that end range of motion. And he's done that through Pale's rails, okay? Good stuff. Okay, and you sit there for about a minute or so. If you had multiple rounds, you'd go again after a minute. But again, in Nick's case today, we're just going to do 1 round. So when you're ready, nice and slowly come out from there. So it probably feels a little bit intense compared to what you're usually used to when you're stretching. But we're applying the same principles from strength training. We're applying it to our end ranges. We're building strength in the end ranges. So that's going to improve the resilience of the tissues, make it less likely for them tissues to yield and get injured. And we're also telling our brain that we are in control and we have strength and control over these areas, okay, of the joints. So it's going to allow us to access these areas, okay? When our brain thinks that we haven't got control and we haven't got strength somewhere, it takes that range away from us, okay? It's like, now you can't have that. Whereas when you build strength in the range of motion, then your brain's like, yeah, you can have access to that because I trust you. I know that you can handle that range. I know you have control of that range. So here you go. Here's the range. That's an analogy you can use when thinking about how the nervous system works with regards to flexibility. Okay, and Pale's rails, from my experience, is the best way of doing that. So just wait till Nick gets his middle splits, then you'll believe us. So the next thing we're going to do is work on the rotation, but this time external rotation of the hip. So Nick's going to get himself back into the 90-90 position, facing the camera. Good stuff. Okay, so once again, he wants to keep a neutral spine, but he can be like a leaning tower. Okay, so I'll allow you to pull yourself over like a leaning tower, but again, making sure you've got that nice neutral spine. You're not flexing here, okay, this is all nice and neutral, and then you're locking down through the core, you're squeezing both the obliques to make sure you stay in that position. Now, external rotation is this here, okay? Me pulling the foot higher will be me pulling him into more external rotation. Okay, how did it feel when I did that?
Okay.
Felt all right?
Yeah.
So, external rotation, this time you're going to be feeling the stretch on the outside of the hip. So around about the glute area, okay? To increase the intensity of the stretch, what Nick can start to do is pull his belly button towards his knee. So not necessarily his shoulders, just his belly button. So what he's doing is he's going to anterior pelvic tilt. Okay, he's pulling that belly button forwards, he's pulling that tailbone back, and he should start to feel a little bit more of a stretch on the outside of the glutes here. Yeah. What you can also do is think about closing the angle from here. So if you're comfortable in this position, you can start to shift the hand towards me. That's going to start to close the angle. Or we could even start to prop up the foot. So if I grab the foot now, you'll probably start to feel like the stretch increases. Yeah. If I pull it higher and higher, you'll feel like it increases even more. Yeah. Keep the knee down. So as I do this, you'll probably feel more of a stretch. Yeah. Keep the knee pushed down. Good. So if you're working on your own, you could just use a yoga block, but I'm going to stay here. I'm going to lose my biceps on this one. Or I'm going to build my biceps on this one. So what it's going to do is going to, again, we hold a 2-minute passive stretch here to start with. And then for the Pales contraction, he'd be pushing down into my hands. He'd be trying to literally push my hands down into the floor. So keep the knee pushed down at all times, don't let the knee come up. And now start to push down, 10%. Trying to push the ankle down, not the knee stays down, the ankle tries to be pushed down, 20%. 30%. You're engaging through the back of the hip capsule, around the glute area. 30%. Pushing down, 40. 50. Now contract the abs, squeeze the hands into the floor. 60, 70, push down, 80, come on, 90, push down, maximal safe contraction, grip my hands down, come on, push, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, now engage the closing angle and try and pull up, pull, keep the knee down, pull, lift, all this tissue contracting, lift, come on, up, pull, and hold the position, keep that knee down. And you can see already he's got a little bit more range, about 5-10 degrees. Breathe, relax. 5 seconds in. 10 seconds out, relaxing in this position, getting comfortable, telling your brain it's okay, telling your nervous system it's okay. And we'll slowly set it down. Okay, we'll do the opposite side now. So we'll get into that 90-90 position again. Again, if Nick's quite restricted here, he can lean over to the side. So if you're doing this, guys, and you feel like you're super restricted, you can lean over to the side. Or once again, you can prop yourself up on a pillow. If you prop yourself up, it's going to open the angle of the joint, and it's going to make it easier to perform this position. Okay, so if you are really struggling, either lean over more or prop yourself up. Okay, but Nick's okay here. He's managed to get a neutral spine. Can you come any further up? Do you feel a stretch in the back of the glutes here at all? Yeah, a little. Little? Okay, let's try and intensify that stretch then. Let's try and pull the belly button forwards. Pull the belly button forwards so you can see that his hip's going into more anterior pelvic tilt. Okay, like he's going into like a duck ass position, like how you'd start a squat or a deadlift. Good. Now from there, you feel a bit more of a stretch? Yeah. Have you got any more in you?
Probably a limit.
Bit more range, or is that your limit?
Yeah, go a bit more.
Okay, so we can prop his foot up. We'll use a pillow this time. Yeah, all good? Yeah. Okay, so he's got a nice pillow that you can push down on here. That acts as a variation of my hands in the last one, because I'm tired now.
You're tired?
Yeah. So
it looks a lot easier than it is.
Yeah, just you wait. So again, you could use a yoga block here or anything like that, anything to prop your foot on that's relatively comfortable. So in this position, he's trying to maintain his pelvic tilt, and especially when he goes through his rails contraction. So the second contraction that we do, he can try and push into more rails, and he can try and get himself more upright. In the rails contraction, it's all about increasing the closing angle of the joint. So it's basically trying to go into more range of motion. Now working on hip external rotation here. So he's trying to go into more hip external rotation on the rails contraction. The Pales contraction is all about pushing down and building resilience, building strength, and telling your brain that it's okay. Showing your brain that you've got strength, you're able to produce force here. Showing it that yes, this is a position you are in control of, the position that you own. Okay, and by contracting the muscles and creating this tension, It's a great way of telling your brain that, yeah, it's okay. And then what happens is you get the ability to do the rails contraction, whereby you're able to go into more range of motion. The reason why you can do that is, again, because the rails contraction has proven to your nervous system, it's proven to your brain that you are in control. So then the brain goes, yeah, okay, have a little bit more range. And that's why you can get further into the rails contraction. Okay, so pushing the foot down, 10%, 20%, 30%, shouldn't be able to pick you up, 40%, 50%, shouldn't be able to pick you up, 60%, shouldn't be able to pick you up, push down, push down, push down, 60. Now engage the core, engage the arms, lock down, 70, 80, shouldn't be able to pick you up, 90, push down, 100, hold for 5, maximal safe contraction, 4, push, 3, push, 2, arm 1. Now try and pull up, try and lift it off the pillow, keeping the knee down, pulling the belly button further forwards, and if you possible, lean yourself over to close the angle of this position, to increase the range of motion in external rotation. Lift that foot up, come on, lift, shift across, pull the belly button forwards, lift, come on, up, pull, contracting all this tissue, the closing angle, and hold the position. 5 seconds in, 10 seconds out. Good lad. Okay, I'm slowly going to remove the pillow, but I want you to stay in this position. So that's Pales rails for both hip internal rotation and external rotation, using our 90-90 position as an example. Okay. So another variation we can do to expand our range of motion is passive range holds and passive range lifts. But this very much comes after the Pales rails. You usually start with the Pales rails to build that strength, build that resilience, and this would be the next tool in our step of progressions to develop more mobility. Okay, so this is a challenging one. Now for the passive range holds, what's going to happen is Nick's going to try and lock down. So he's going to try and take a big breath in, lock down through the core, press the arms into the floor, and then he's going to try and just simply lift and hold the foot off the floor for as long as possible. Hold the ankle off the floor. Lift, contracting the closing angle. Lift. Come on, higher, up. Slowly lower down. Good. That would be examples of passive range hold. If you was to do passive range lifts, all we do is just get into this position, inhale, brace, you do a rep, then you control down. You do that for multiple reps. Now let's look at the same thing for internal rotation. Try and hold that position. Now, again, I might need to prop Nick up. How's he looking? Not looking too bad. A little bit of lateral flexion through the spine, so I'd probably prop him up if it was convenient, but I'm not going to right now just for demonstration purposes. And what you can do though, you can slightly start to lean forward a little bit, and then what's going to happen, the closing angle of hip internal rotation is going to be this region here. So he's going to try and contract all this tissue to try and lift the foot up off the floor. Okay, so he's going to take a big breath in, lock down, then he's going to try and lift the ankle off the floor. Lift. Look at that. Lift. Yeah, boy, that's good. All them kicks. Lift. Come on, up. Higher. Now hold. And if I was here with a partner, if I was doing this on my own, I'd be using some yoga blocks. I'd get him to relax here. 5 seconds in, 10 seconds out. So that was one hold. That was one passive range hold. Now I'm going to make him do another hold in his end range. So inhale, lock down. Now lift off my hand. More in range. Come on, push. Get to that end range. Come on, lift, and slowly lower down. Relax, breathe. Good job. Okay, so there you have hip internal rotation and external rotation, Pales rails and passive range holds. Passive range lifts are exactly the same basically, but you just lift up and lower down, you do reps as opposed to doing just isometric holds. So now we're trying to get a little bit more specific with his training. If I was programming Nick and he only had a little bit of time, we'd certainly be prioritizing the rotation of his hip, because as we mentioned previously, when you're trying to work on hip range of motion, address the capsule first. Okay, that's going to get into the joint capsule itself. So it's going to be the deep tissue, the deep stuff, the deep connective tissue, the deep capsular tissue surrounding the joint, and that needs to be addressed first before we can start to work into the muscles around the hip. You need to start to address the range of motion in the capsule first before you can start to make these improvements elsewhere and make sure you've got strength and resilience around the capsule, to make sure it's safe and strong and resilient before going into more advanced, not necessarily more advanced, but working into the muscles around the hip. Okay, so now that we've addressed the capsule, other areas that we'd start to train with Nick once he started to improve his rotation would be abduction, okay, which is highly specific for our middle splits. Okay, so what we're going to do is I'm going to get into a frog stretch position. Again, this is just an example. We could train butterfly position, we could train bear sit position, all of the variations that still train abduction, but in this case we're going to use frog stretch. Now, the opening angle is going to be the adductors, okay, so the inside of the thigh. This is the opening angle. So when he's down here, come to your elbows, this is going to be the tissue that he's trying to stretch. Do you feel a stretch along here?
Yeah.
Perfect. You don't feel any pinching up here?
Nah, maybe a little in my left side, but not.
Okay, if you feel a little bit of pinching, I want you to bring it in slightly. Bring the knee in slightly. Okay, so guys, if you do feel the pinching, you don't want to move further into that pinching because that's just going to cause more damage. Okay, usually pinching is usually a nerve, and you don't want to be stressing that nerve too much. Okay, so what we typically do is we come up slightly out of that, and then we can work on the Pales rails. And usually, what you'll find is by going through Pales rails, you go back into that range that previously caused you a pinch, and it feels a lot better. And then with consistent input, that can then start to go away, that pinch in that position. Okay, so let's come out of it slightly. Nick's making sure he's got a nice neutral spine, which he's got. Okay, he's going to try and sit his hips back as much as he feels comfortable. Ideally, I'm looking for the hips in line with the knees, which is very similar or the same as the position for a middle splits. Okay, the hips and the knees will be in the same line. From there, once he's rested, once he's held this stretch and found the best lines of tension on the inside of his thighs for about 1 to 2 minutes, he's going to start his Pales contraction. Now his Pales contraction, I want you to imagine that his hips are like a book, and he's trying to slam that, well not so he's slam, but he's trying to close that book. Okay, so he's trying to push the knees together into the floor, try and close the hips. Okay, if the hips were a book, he's trying to close the hips. Okay, so start by pushing both them knees down into the floor. 10%, pushing down. 20%, so he's engaging the adductors here. There's previously stretched tissue, he's trying to contract and build strength and resilience in these tissues. 20%. 30%, pushing down, 40%, 50% contracting this tissue, squeeze, 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 I want to see it squeezing, come on, 60%, 70, 80, pushing down, 90, and 100. Hold for 5, push the knees down, 4, 3, push down, 2, 1, now engage the outside of the hips and try and drive the knees wider. Good, engage the outside of the hips, drive the knees wider, drive down, is that pinching there? No, good stuff. Drive down, good job. So you can see there how much more range of motion he's got without the pinching, without the pain. Drive down. 5, keep engaging this tissue. 4, 3, 2, 1. Hold, breathe. 5 seconds in, 10 seconds out. Relax into this position, get comfortable in this position. Because we fancy it, we're going to go for one more round here. Couldn't resist. Okay, breathe for a little bit longer. Usually you take about a minute of rest in between rounds where you're just holding the position, getting comfortable here. But for this case, we're going to go straight back into it. So 10%, trying to close the hips, engaging this tissue to draw the knees together, try and close the hips. 20%, obviously it's isometric because the floor's not going to move. 20%, 30%, 40%, 50%, 60, contracting this tissue, 70, squeeze, 80, engage the core, drive the arms into the floor, 90, push, 100, hold for 5, maximal safe contraction, 4, contract this tissue, 3, 2, 1, now engage the glutes, try and drive down as much as you can, drive down, engage the glutes, any pinching? No. Good job, keep driving down, Drive, contract all this tissue on the outside of the hip. All the closing angle, we're trying to contract so we draw deeper into that position. Drive. Come on, drive down, contract this tissue. 4, 3, 2, 1, breathe. 5 seconds in, 10 seconds out. Okay, nice and slowly come out from there. Any way you like. Okay, so that's the example of Pales rails. If for hip abduction using this case the frog stretch. But again, it's just a variation. You've got many of the variations as long as we're training the hips in abduction and we're making them same contractions of the open angle and the closing angle, then you can't go wrong as long as they feel good and they're not painful. You're not getting that closing angle pain. Okay. So the final thing we're going to do is look at passive range holds in the quadruped position. Now again, in Nick's case, like we wouldn't really use these yet. We start with the Pales rails because that's the first part of call. But once he starts to get a little bit better, which will be very soon, he'll start to work on the passive range holds, which in this case we're going to use quadruped abduction. Okay, so Nick's going to go onto all fours. So now we're going to work into a passive range hold for hip abduction. So as we previously mentioned, the Pales rails comes first. Okay, so we'd start him off with Pales rails, but then in a few weeks or months' time, once he's got better quality Pales rails, he's able to get into much more range of motion. We then start to work him into passive range holds and passive range lifts to still work on expanding that range of motion. Okay, so he's going to get into the level 2 quadruped hip car position. So exactly the same as before. Same applies. He's going to try and brace in through the core, push the arms into the floor. This leg that's not doing any work, this hip that's staying here, so he's going to try and stay isometric contracted. You're going to try and push the foot down into the floor, push the knee down, make sure you're nice and stable through here, and the spine should not be compensating in any way. Okay, so I'm going to put a pillow on his back, and that pillow should stay there. The spine should not be moving. This is all staying locked down. From here, we're going to take his hip out into abduction, so I'll let you do it first. Good, just go as far as you feel comfortable. Again, making sure there's no compensations through the spine. Now let's see if we can start to take him into any more range of motion. So his spine should not be moving. We're just trying to move the hip into more abduction, move it out further to the side. So let's see if we can take him any further. Don't contract, I'm just going to take you up. How does that feel? Any more? Any more, or are you good?
I'm good.
Okay, so this is his passive end range. So what we're going to try and do here is contract the abductors, so contract all this tissue. The abductors, contract all this tissue and try and lift and hold off from my hand. So 3, 2, 1, hold, 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 hold. Don't compensate through the spine. Lift, 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 and slowly lower down. You're cramping. Yeah. Okay, so that's another example, guys, of what we can use for hip abduction, but that's a passive range hold. Another variation we could do is a passive range lift, which would be where we'd lift up, hold that position and control down. You'd do it for reps. But in this case, you find the passive end range, whether that be on a pillow or a yoga block or anything like that. And then from there, you're going to try and lift and hold that position and try and build strength and contract in that end range of motion, in that passive end range of motion, to build active range of motion as opposed to passive range of motion in that position. Okay. Awesome, guys. That is an example of a middle splits workout for Nick. Mark my words, in a few months' time, he's going to be just
Jean-Claude
Van Damme on his 2 Volvos.